Narcissistic personality disorder.
Been dead a long time.
This is the kind of disorder where someone thinks they're way more important than they actually are. They always want attention, need people to admire them, and they're terrible at handling any kind of criticism. In Red Dead Redemption, Dutch is that guy, 100%. From the start, he's all charm. Big speeches, talking about dreams and freedom, but it's always about him. He's got the biggest tent in camp, a phonograph. He never donates to the gang funds, but somehow controls all the money. Meanwhile, the rest of the gang's barely scraping by. After the St. Denis trolley job, things go downhill fast. Dutch gets more paranoid, more reckless. He kills Bronte and acts like he did something righteous, but really he just snapped. And instead of listening to Arthur or John, the people who've had his back for years, he clings to MICAH, the one guy who tells him exactly what he wants to hear. And that's the real issue. Dutch doesn't want loyalty, he wants worship. And the second you stop feeding his ego, he turns on you. Ask Molly, ask Arthur. By the end, it's not about the plan or the people. It's just Dutch trying to hold on to the version of himself he's made up in his head. Antisocial personality disorder, sociopathy.
Come out, Sheriff, or we're coming in. Your women, your children, we'll bleed them all out one by
This disorder basically means the person doesn't care about anyone but themselves. They'll lie, cheat, hurt people, and feel absolutely nothing about it. No guilt, no empathy, just pure self-interest. And in RDR, if there's one guy that had no soul from the jump, it's MICAH Bell. He's a textbook sociopath. Early on, dude kills a man in Strawberry just for mouthing off. Ends up in jail, and when you bail him out, he shoots up the whole town without even blinking. That pretty much sets the tone for everything he does after. He doesn't bond with the gang, doesn't earn anyone's respect. They all hate him. Arthur can't stand him. Sadie wants to kill him. Even Bill barely tolerates him. But Dutch starts buying into MICAH's act once he's mentally spiraling, and that's where MICAH really thrives when things fall apart. He feeds Dutch's ego, tells him what he wants to hear, and slowly turns him against the people who actually cared. You know it's bad when Dutch listens to MICAH over Arthur or John. Also, he's the one who pushes Dutch to blow up Bacchus Bridge, just to create chaos and distract the army. Not for strategy, just destruction. And in the end, he rats out the gang to the Pinkertons. Full betrayal. MICAH doesn't care about the plan. He never did. He just used the gang, stirred things up, and waited to take power. He's a full-blown sociopath, hiding behind a fake smile and a revolver. Major depressive disorder.
Whatever do you want?
Mr. Thomas Downs, you owe me money.
In Red Dead Redemption 2, depression is everywhere, and the characters who show it most are Arthur Morgan, KIERAN Jones, and Molly O'Shea. Major depressive disorder is more than just feeling sad. It's that constant weight, hopelessness, emptiness, guilt, like nothing matters anymore. And Arthur? He carries that weight the moment he finds out he's dying. After the TB diagnosis, you can feel the shift. He stops chasing money and starts thinking about what kind of man he's been. He writes about regret in his journal, reflects on the life he's lived, and even tries to make things right, like when he gives money to Edith Downs, the very woman whose husband he beat up. That scene says everything. And if you play with high honor, his last moment looking at the sunrise feels like someone finally at peace, but also done. KIERAN, on the other hand, doesn't even pretend to hold it together. After Sean dies, she breaks. She's constantly drunk, slurring through camp, and totally disconnected. She stops pulling her weight, and honestly, nobody really helps her. She just fades into the background, and then she's gone. Then there's Molly, Dutch's lover, or ex, depending on how you see it. Once he stops paying her any attention, she spirals. She mutters to herself, thinks people are laughing at her, and finally snaps at Shady Bell. That confrontation, drunken, desperate, and heartbreaking. And even though she didn't betray the gang, Susan shoots her anyway. Depression in this game slowly eats away at each of them in different ways. Post-traumatic stress disorder.
Come on, get out of here.
Arthur, what are you doing?
I gotta go have a little chat before I get much sicker.
No.
PTSD shows up in Red Dead Redemption 2 in a way that feels raw and real, especially through Sadie Adler and John Marston. Sadie's trauma starts right at the beginning. Her husband is murdered by the O'Driscolls, and based on hints in the dialogue, she may have been assaulted too. From that point on, she's a different person. She doesn't mourn like others. She turns cold, angry, and locked in on revenge. Anytime there's a shootout, she's the first to jump in, and she never backs down. Arthur literally tells her to fall back during one fight, and she ignores him. She needs that chaos. After the gang falls apart, she doesn't try to rebuild a quiet life. She becomes a bounty hunter, always on the move, always in danger. It's like she doesn't know how to live any other way. Then there's John. In the epilogue, man, when he rides past the old camps, he hears voices, not real ones, but memories, auditory flashbacks. He's not just haunted by what happened, he's carrying the weight of everything that went wrong. There's a constant tension in him. He's trying to be a rancher, a husband, a father, but you can tell he's never really present. He hesitates when revisiting places tied to Dutch, Arthur, or the gang. It's like the past is just sitting there, waiting for him to crack. Both of them made it out, but neither of them ever really got out. That's PTSD, always pulling you back into a moment you wish you could forget. Generalized Anxiety Disorder, GAD.
What the hell have they done to me?
If there's one character in Red Dead Redemption 2 who's just constantly on edge, it's KIERAN Duffy. The guy is a walking bundle of nerves, and it's not without reason. GAD is basically when someone can't stop worrying about anything, about everything. With KIERAN, it's like his brain never shuts off. He's always scared of being kicked out, of being killed, of not belonging. After all, he was a former O'Driscoll, so the gang never fully trusts him, and he knows it. At camp, you can see it. He tries way too hard to prove himself. Always polite, always trying to help, always looking over his shoulder. Sadie openly threatens him. Others mock him, and he just takes it because deep down he thinks he deserves it. The worst part? His biggest fear actually comes true. The O'Driscolls capture him, torture him, and send his mutilated body back on a horse, headless. It's brutal. And it's exactly what he was terrified of from the beginning. KIERAN never stood a chance. He wanted to belong, but the fear never left him. And that's the tragedy of anxiety. Sometimes it feels like no matter what you do, your worst-case scenario is always just around the corner. Psychotic symptoms, psychosis.
We are gonna find out what you need.
I can't believe it!
By the later chapters of Red Dead Redemption 2, Dutch doesn't just seem unstable, he seems gone. Not like a man with a plan anymore, but like someone completely disconnected from reality. This is where psychosis comes in. It's when someone loses touch, they see threats that aren't there, trust the wrong people, or become totally unhinged. And Dutch, he checks every box. After the St. Denis trolley mess, he takes a nasty blow to the head. And from that point on, everything gets worse. He starts spinning paranoid theories, convinced Arthur and John are turning against him, even though they're still trying to help. He ignores reason, dismisses people he's known for years, and keeps repeating that he has a plan, long after it's clear he doesn't. There's that moment where he just stands at the cliff near camp for hours. No missions, no dialogue, just Dutch staring out, muttering to himself. He's unraveling. And the Dutch we knew, the clever manipulator, the speech giver, is basically gone. What's left is someone who can't make sense of the world around him and lashes out at the people trying to save him. He becomes erratic. One minute he's calm, the next he's ready to kill. He trusts MICAH, a known snake, over Arthur and John, all because MICAH feeds his delusions. Dutch lost himself, and the more he spiraled, the more everyone around him paid the price. Bipolar disorder.
There he is, old Arthur.
Miss Karen?
Bipolar disorder is when someone goes through intense mood swings, from emotional highs to deep lows. And with Arthur, depending on how you play him, there are moments where he shifts from being totally numb to suddenly fired up and full of purpose. Sometimes he's quiet, reflective, barely talking. Then other times he's throwing himself into shootouts, making big emotional decisions, even getting a little reckless. That contrast, the low energy versus bursts of activity, is part of what makes players wonder. Still, those emotional shifts, especially in Chapter 6, do feel intense. One moment he's calm and kind, the next he's snapping or going all in on dangerous missions. It's not full-blown bipolar, but it's enough to raise the question: substance use disorders.
I am reminded of Prometheus. In many ways, the Greek myths are best in explaining the very punishments that imbue our daily existence with their...
Addiction shows up more than once in Red Dead Redemption 2, and it hits three characters in very different ways: Reverend Swanson, Karen Jones, and Molly O'Shea. At the beginning of the game, Reverend Swanson is a mess. He's addicted to both morphine and alcohol, barely functioning. There's even that scene where Arthur finds him passed out near a train track and has to drag him to safety. It's rough, but what's interesting is his arc. By the end, he pulls himself together. Swanson sobers up and becomes a preacher in New York. It's one of the rare cases where someone does come out the other side. Karen, her story is a lot sadder. After Sean dies, she just kind of falls apart. You'll find her drunk more often than not, barely interacting with anyone. She stops helping the gang, stops being part of anything. No one really reaches out, she just fades into the background. And then she's gone. Molly's situation is more complicated. She's not an obvious alcoholic, but her breakdown at SADIE Bell, drunk, angry, emotional, hints that she might have been drinking to cope. Dutch ignores her, pushes her out emotionally, and she's left isolated. That confrontation doesn't feel like a betrayal. It feels like someone who's been falling apart for a long time and no one noticed. Paranoia. Paranoia is when someone starts believing people are out to get them, or that they're being watched, judged, or talked about, even when none of it's true. And by the time the gang is holed up at Shady Bell, Molly's slipping into that mindset hard. Molly O'Shea's story in Red Dead Redemption 2 is one of the most quietly tragic. What starts as heartbreak slowly unravels into full-on paranoia, and maybe even early signs of something deeper. She's isolated. Dutch, who she was once close to, barely acknowledges her anymore, and instead of support from the gang, she feels invisible. Eventually, she starts accusing people, Kieran especially, of spreading rumors about her. She says people are laughing at her, whispering, turning against her. Then comes the breakdown. Drunk, angry, and exhausted, Molly storms back to camp and blurts out that she betrayed the gang to the Pinkertons. But it's a lie, she didn't. It's like she just wanted someone to see her, even if it meant making herself the villain. Susan Grimshaw doesn't ask questions. She just shoots. Complicated grief and trauma response. Sadie Adler carries it, lives in it, and never really escapes it. Her entire arc in Red Dead Redemption 2 is a case study in complicated grief when mourning doesn't fade, but hardens into something permanent. Right from the start, she loses everything. Her husband's murdered by the O'Driscolls, and her home is burned down while she's hiding in the cellar. That kind of trauma doesn't just sting, it breaks people. But instead of collapsing, Sadie turns all of that pain into rage. She becomes obsessed with revenge. You see it every time there's a fight. Sadie never backs down. She's too eager. Arthur even tries to calm her down at one point, but it doesn't matter, she needs the violence. It's the only thing that makes her feel in control. After Guarma, the gap between Sadie and the rest of the gang gets wider. She's colder, more distant, and never really opens up. When things finally settle down in the epilogue, she doesn't join the weddings or the peaceful ranch life. She becomes a bounty hunter, alone, always chasing danger like she can't breathe unless something's on fire.